Al, thank you so much for joining us as our host today. The first question is, can you discuss the origin of Cloud Imperium and what ways we've grown as an organisation over the past 11 years?
Sure. It's quite a long story, so I'll keep it brief. And I wasn't actually personally at the company at that time. I've been with Cloud Imperium for coming up 8 years. So it all starts with Chris Roberts. Some of you will know him. He's from a very, very good pedigree in designing video games. Started out in the 1990s with games like Wing Commander. He's always been kind of like the space game guy. And as we came into like 2010, 2011, I think Chris realized that the vision for the games that he was trying to build back in the 90s, Wing Commander and Freelancer, even more so, he wanted to build like this incredible interactive universe that you could just go and explore and have great freedom in, but he couldn't make it with the technology then. So as technology moved on, he realized, maybe I can make that game now. So he actually came and spoke to me and a few other people early on before I started working with him. At the time I was working at Crytek, and he wanted to look at our CryEngine technology because he wanted to build this incredible new version of Wing Commander. So then he went round and he pitched it to publishers, Holly was talking about earlier, and they all said no. They all said, there's no appetite for a game like this. This is a game from the 90s. Nobody really wants to play it. And he thought, well, I don't think that's true. Fortunately enough, and a lot of our story is about serendipity and a bit of luck and good timing. At that time, Kickstarter and crowdfunding was kind of coming about. And so our co-founder, Sandy, said, look, I think there's a community out there for this. You think there's a community out there, let's ask them and see if there is a community out there. So we tried crowdfunding the game, and obviously it went pretty well. What I think one of the surprising stories from the beginning, and it's a real part of our genesis, was like any crowdfunding campaign, you say, look, if you want to back us for this much money, we'll give you a gift, and you want to back a little more, we'll give you a better gift. So the first day they launched, built their own crowdfunding platform. Next morning they're starting looking at the orders that are coming in, and people are buying a £100 package, and a £50 package, and a £25 package, and a £10 package. And so as game developers, our first thought is, oh God, there's a bug. Oh no, we've been charging people, we put a bug in the system. If they spend 100, we'll charge them for all the levels below. So very quickly we started contacting the customers and saying, did you make a mistake? Is this, can we fix this? And they all said, no. Each level of your reward comes with a spaceship that's going to be in the game. I want all the spaceships. So I bought every level. And I think that was the light bulb moment where we realized, well, hang on a minute, we're doing this in a different way. This is not traditional crowdfunding. This is something our community is interested in. This is the world that we're building here, obviously has value for them. And that was probably half of our genesis. The other really important thing was Sandy and Chris looked at what was going wrong with crowdfunding at the time. And the main problem seemed to be people didn't know what was happening. So they give their money to a project, and then they just don't know what's happening with that project. So they realized really early on that absolute transparency with the community was critical, and that's where we decided everything that we build we're going to share. We're going to give them access to the game. The very first day we have a functioning build that you can do something with. So we gave everybody access to a hangar, and within that hangar you could start looking at your spaceships that you pledged for. We had 3D models of them. Then we could open the hangar doors figuratively, and you could go out and fly those spaceships in little arena modes. And then that arena became our first planet that you could fly in real time down to. That became our first solar system. And slowly but surely, we let people try the game out and tell us what they thought about it. And really, by having that openness and that transparency, that's led to the success we've had. And here we are, 10, 11 years later, we're approaching about £500 million in community funding. We're still completely transparent. We tell everybody everything. We tell everybody how we spend the money, how we collect the money, how the game is performing, what our roadmap is, and having that communication has been a critical part of our growth, I think.
Wonderful. And you've touched on this now about the strong collaboration between yourselves and the players, but you refer to them as partners. How do you build that relationship with the players? You've touched on it briefly then. How are you doing it now?
Yeah, well, when I started in my career nearly 30 years ago in the games industry, my first employer was a gentleman, a very smart guy called Ian Babstock. Some people here may know, is an important part of the UK games industry actually. he said something very smart. He said the problem with the games industry is that the creator is too far away from the consumer. That the customer isn't being able to talk to the creator directly, we're not being able to build the game they want because there's too many barriers in the way. So, what a smart guy, because where are we all now? We're now desperately trying to remove those barriers, talk to our community and really have a close connection with them. And that's what we did. So, you know, we have no barriers between us. We said, right, we're going direct to the consumer, and the consumer's going to tell us what they want and what they want to do. Now, a lot of what we do, I'm not suggesting everyone can do, right? We've been very lucky, and obviously it's been successful, and that's given us the ability to do a lot of things that not everyone can. However, the world now is one where you can easily communicate with your gamers. They have so many ways of getting in touch with you that back in the 90s we didn't have. We'd work away in the dark on a game, hoping that we were right, that it was going to be fun, and we put it out and we see what the audience think. Well, now we're giving the audience the games, and we're telling them what we're doing, and they're contacting us, whether it's through social media or through our own platforms or tools that we're building to listen to them. One of the things you have to do is listen and is share that information, but you also got to be a little careful, because you can tend to listen to some loud voices who don't necessarily represent the majority. So we look at Reddit all the time, we look at our forums, there's quite a lot of commentary there on what people like and don't like about Star Citizen. And quite often it's not quite right, and so what we actually do is we rely on metrics to see whether or not that data is true. So we've had so many examples where a comment's come up on Reddit, this spaceship sucks and this is why, and it gets upvoted by quite a few people. And then we look at the metrics and we see in the last build that, you know, of the 150,000 people playing the game, 75% of them playing that ship every day. So okay, so here's somebody who's got a problem, but not everybody's sharing the same problem. So a combination of metrics and listening and sharing makes the community feel like they're part of the development process, and that's the real big, that's the win. That's where, you know, you can really get success, and you can be a lot more sure that your game's going to be fun when you release it, because everybody's been telling you what's wrong with it all the way through.
And how do you implement the feedback that you gather? I mean, obviously some of this in other companies is done straight from a community manager or a team of community managers. Is that something that you do, or is it more of a company-wide kind of thing?
We do, but again, what we try and do is build solutions, you know, that help us do that. So actually, one really good thing we're doing at the moment, we call it our issue council. It's actually based on some technology built in Canada by a company called Turbulent, Please Fix. And the idea here is it's community bug reporting. So what we realized was, you know, we can't just pick these things out of Reddit. We need to, like I was saying earlier with the connection between the consumer and the creator, we need to get the player connected to the developer. There's, you know, you can do community management forums, ticket systems, blah, blah, blah. That just slows the process down, it dilutes the information, it means that you're not listening to the player. So with this issue council and Please Fix, what it's able to do is it's a very easy way for people to report bugs. It's got some AI in it to make sure there's no duplication, and it sort of turns a complaint into a bug report of sorts. It can then be upvoted, downvoted by the community, and then the really smart thing is it can be connected directly into our developer bug database. So you report an issue on the issue council in Star Citizen, at some point it's going to appear right in the Jira or bug database of the developer who can fix it. And so you're making that connection directly, saving a lot of time and improving the game. Because what we found, and what I really love about this approach we have, I've made a lot of games over my career, and you tend to focus on Class A crashing bugs as your priority. You know, you can't let a game go out that's going to crash. So, you know, you knock down all the Class A bugs, and then eventually, hopefully, you'll get to the bugs that are, well, okay, the game isn't great with that problem, but we'll leave it in because we ran out of time. What we found, of course, is that players who are actually actively playing your game, they can live with a lot of those stability issues. If they know that fly here, click that button, do this thing, game crashes, well, they just won't do it. They'll just avoid that for a while until you fix it. But actually, if your ship is not fun, it's not performing right, it's the gameplay in that area isn't enjoyable, they're going to upvote the hell out of that. So we're actually fixing the bugs that the player cares about, we'll have to fix all the stability issues as well, and anyone who's played Star Citizen will know we have a lot of those. But, you know, by allowing our community to prioritise bugs for us, it means that we're hitting down the ones that they care the most about, and that makes the game better, and that makes them come back more and enjoy the product.
Because I suppose as a player, it's that sentiment as well, isn't it? You're having a positive experience, and it's giving you the time to focus on maybe some bigger challenges because they're happy, because what they see has been fixed. It's giving them sort of quality playtime, and for them, I'm guessing.
Yeah, exactly, and it's empowering them. You know, they know that there's a way for them to communicate. They're not just putting in a ticket to a system and hoping for the best, or talking to a community or a customer service agent that nowadays might not even be a person. This is a way that they know that they're getting their message across, and you know, we communicate back through the platform, say, hey, this bug got fixed, here are the last 10 bugs that got fixed, here are the people who in our community who made those bugs, who's the best bug finder, who's getting the most bugs fixed. So it's another part of the community, and getting people to talk and be involved in it. It's all a part of it, and the more kind of tools we can build like that, the easier it makes it.
You touched on this briefly again before. How do you judge what is good and useful feedback from people?
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, it would be easy to sort of see it as designed by committee, and then we'd have a committee of 4 million people. So we don't do that. That would be unwieldy, to say the least. No, I mean, we know the game that we're building. We listen, obviously, as I say, to the community. We think about the priorities very much based on what the community is telling us, and we'll have events and moments where we say, look, this is an opportunity for the community to come and give us feedback. So we, pre-pandemic, and now we're starting again post-pandemic, we have a big event called CitizenCon every year that, you know, a few thousand of our players can come together, and we almost always have some playable, something we haven't shown before, playable code there for them to try out, and then we take their feedback live from that. But more, it really is about watching what people are playing. We have another tool we built, which is basically a 3D simulation of our universe in Star Citizen, that we can watch players' activities flying around. So you can just, like a god's eye view, see, why is no one going to this corner of the universe? We've got gameplay there and they're not playing it. There's clearly a problem with this. So because the community is large, you have to look at the larger scale metrics rather than the individual, you know, angry comment on Reddit or something like that.
Yeah. And for some of the developers working on the game, do they ever feel overwhelmed with sort of the information that's coming through? And if they do or if they don't, like, how do you deal with it?
We make it entirely optional for people to be involved. We encourage it. We really want our developers to be involved with our community, because it's normally a very positive experience, and you know, to meet people who are as passionate as you are about the product that you're working on. Again, it's a rare thing in this industry, because normally we work on things in secret and then release it out. You know, so people who are working on live service games or games with sequels know this feeling. It's just great to feel that feedback and know that you're doing something that people appreciate. It comes with it, you know, some people don't appreciate what you're doing, and we've had our fair share of bad press and negativity. So we never, you know, it's never compulsory for anyone to get involved with the community, although, as I say, we do encourage it. And then, you know, when I was talking about the issue council sending through an issue to a developer, that isn't without curation. So we've got layers of management and production who are, you know, taking this data, taking the information from the community, it's going through a number of filters so that we get the right answers. But even up to Chris Roberts at the top, who is a very active game director, he's not, you know, a traditional, you know, executive CEO. He's reading the comments, he's looking at what the players are doing, he's reading the metrics, and he's using that to make his design decisions about, you know, the right way to go, which bits of the game are working, which bits of the game aren't working. And what we found actually is now, giving people the sandbox and the tools, there's so much emergent gameplay coming out of the product. People started making their own little racing games, and we said, oh, okay, well, let's give you tools so you can put a start and a finish line down. And that's a pretty simple thing to do, but it created hundreds of hours of gameplay for the players, and obviously they really appreciate it, because they feel like, oh, you've been watching us stream it, you're watching what we're doing, you care about what we think and what we want, and that feedback loop is critical. It builds the trust between us and our community. Without that trust, we would have nothing.
And final question is, Imperium started in Austin, Texas. Why Manchester as the UK base?
Well, I mean, again, starts with Chris Roberts. He was born in Manchester. He first made his first games in Manchester with a group of friends and family. They then moved as a family to Austin because of his parents' work, and that's when he started at Origin Systems with Wing Commander. He's been based in the United States for a long time, so that was the place to start. But very quickly, as the funding, as we realised the funding was going to increase to a huge extent, the scale and scope of the game was also going to increase. So he knew we needed more people. Here in the Northwest, there was a group of developers that he worked with on Wing Commander. At the time, were working at Traveller's Tales. So, and they were led by Aaron Roberts, who's a very experienced games producer and also part of Chris's family. So they were the first to set up Foundry 42, it was called then, here in the UK, in Wilmslow. We didn't take us long to get up to about 300 people in quite a small office there. And then the pandemic hit just as we were thinking, oh, we need to move out of this space. So it was, again, a bit lucky that we could send everybody home and then try and move office. So we moved to Manchester because we simply wanted to be in a city. It's nice and quiet in Wilmslow, but it's not a lot of fun. So it's a gift, obviously it's a young demographic in terms of working in the games industry. We want people to be able to have fun, be able to enjoy a city around them, and Manchester kind of calls you back. Most of the senior team are all from Manchester one way or another. I was born in Stockport many years ago, and when we came here and we just saw how the city's changed in the last 10 years, this is such a cool place to live and work. So yeah, now we're up to 600 people. We've got this new office we've just built there, and it feels like Manchester's a great place to be. I think the video games tax credit has massively helped us because it means the UK's always had really, really good game developers. It's a rich vein of it's a very high pedigree. The Northwest, I mean, classically, the Northwest was a great place for video games. It suffered a bit during the early noughties, but there's good talent here, and with the help of the tax credit, it means they're competitive, price-wise with the other locations. And so yeah, we kind of left. We've got an office in Los Angeles, in Austin, here in Manchester, and in Frankfurt, and we have a partner company of ours in Montreal in Canada. But Manchester has become by far the largest of our studios because we've chosen to grow it here, where there's talent, where it's a good place to work. And I think, although I don't think Ukie's actually done the final numbers yet, but your excellent analytics team will soon. I think by us moving to Manchester, we've now made Manchester the biggest city for video games in the UK after London, taking over from our friends in Cambridge and Leamington and Guildford. So good for Manchester, I reckon. And we're still growing, so if my friends in Guildford think they're going to catch us up, they won't.
Has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask? Yes.
What do you look for in a junior developer when hiring one?
Passion for the project, first and foremost. I think it was interesting talking earlier. We judge people on portfolio more than anything else, and so that kind of personal work, I think, is critical. And what you were asking earlier about whether or not that can count towards your work. If you're in a creative field, we're just going to look at your portfolio. If you're incredibly talented, or if you built some code that we're like, wow, that's pretty impressive, that's going to be the first hurdle for us. Possibly slightly unpopular, but we're an in-office company. Just the scale of the project we're working on and the size of the teams that are working and collaborating together, we found the pandemic quite difficult in getting people to collaborate successfully. And since we were able to bring most people back, we have very flexible working patterns. People can work from home, but we tend to want people to be coming into the office and working face to face with their colleagues. It's difficult enough having people spread around the world, but to then also have a team splintered across different locations. I can see how small teams can manage it, but the building a planet takes a big team of artists, and they need to be working together quite closely. So I'd say they're the key things.
Thank you.
It was awesome to hear about the massive analytics system that you built for the game. Did you experiment with third party?
It's mostly in-house. Our original crowdfunding platform crashed and died. We then got a better one with a company called Turbulent. This is the Canadian crew. They're brilliant. And so a lot of this work then is going through their systems, and they build a lot of this stuff for us. So we try to use, you know, because obviously most of the data is coming out of the game, but then we use things like Tableau for, you know, visualizing the data. It's always the thing to take this, you know, enormous amount of data and then turn it into something that people can really easily read. And so we'll use third-party software for the presentation of that data. But the metrics itself and, you know, our model universe that we can run, that's all stuff that we build ourselves. And as I said, you know, we're lucky in that we're able to do that. But there's good stuff out there, and everybody should really be trying to use the metrics from their games as much as they can. I used to joke that no one's got a formula for what makes a good game, but actually now we've got maths that can tell us whether it's good or not, and that's a massive change to the industry. And I think that's why the successful live service games are successful, is because they're measuring how enjoyable their game is, and then they're reacting to it.
I just wanted to ask you, for indie companies, how do you see nowadays the idea of alternative funding, like, you know, Eddie's talk, in relation to when you started with crowdfunding? I mean, is micropayments way forward? So
I
to
mean,
get rid of the
if I was,
middleman.
sorry.
Yeah, get rid of the middleman in terms of, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if I was to try and start again right now, I think it would be a really exciting time to start a new game and start a new project, because I think you do have the tools to be able to immediately communicate with your consumer. You have people like Epic just giving you everything for free, and then, you know, being able to early access your game is not an uncommon thing now, and I would encourage everybody to do it, because, you know, unless there's some reason to keep your game secret, like maybe it's a heavy story game and you don't want it to get spoiled, getting early versions of the game out there and seeing, I wish I'd been able to do that with some of my failures in the past, some of my learning moments. Because we got it wrong, and we didn't get the feedback until the game was out. So yeah, I think it's a really powerful thing we can all do nowadays, just because the tools have been provided to us, and in some cases, you know, free of charge.
Sorry, on your website, I remember seeing some roles do like IT support and stuff like that. Obviously, because your team's so big, so my role's kind of at Fujitsu, so I do kind of calls and stuff like that for tech support. I'm just wondering, how does that work in like a games company, like in terms of keeping everyone's computers running and stuff like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's difficult because everything's high end, right? So you're not, you know, no one's working off a basic machine. I mean, it creates different challenges. I have to worry a lot about air conditioning much more than any normal company, because every machine is chucking out 1200 watts. You know, so we have a lot of people doing it. It's spread across all of our studios, and I don't think it's a problem we've solved yet. I think, you know, we've grown. You know, many companies get to this situation. You grow quicker than you're perhaps planning to, and so then you're always kind of recovering from that and saying, right, well, now I've got 1,000 people all needing IT support.
Yeah.
How many people is that going to be every day? And you suddenly realise that you don't have a linear increase of your IT, you have a square rule increase, because it just seems that's the way it works. So all of our support functions have had to grow far more than maybe we would have expected. And as you just ramp up towards that 1,000 people mark, it's staggering how much you need to spend on supporting those people and making sure that they're happy. And that's the most important thing for us, is that people want to come into work and they want to be creative, and we try and do everything we can to make them happy. And that includes giving them whatever spec of machine they need. So we just upgraded everybody to 4K monitors.
Lovely. Yeah. Can't really complain. Cheers.
Where were the old ones?
It's kind of a minor question, I guess. You mentioned the video game tax credit, but that's actually the first time I've ever heard of something like that. Is it mandatory?
Right. Yeah, it's a really good system. It's very similar to what was being done for film, and why the UK film industry has been successful over the years. So I'm not an accountant, first of all, but in basic terms, you can get a grant, effectively a credit back from the government for your game development work. So if you spend £100 on game development, they'll give you back a percentage of that in cash that you can then use, you know, to support your costs. Ukie's got a lot of
I was
information.
just going to say, that's in your emails and you sort of stuff. Right, Oh. Go on. What time? Even what time is it? I just don't want the pizzas going cold.
7:15. Yeah.
7:15? Are they two quick questions?
Yeah, I got a quick one.
Alright.
I found interesting how you sort of gamify the bug fixing problem.
Mm.
What else do you gamify like this, or is it like is that in like other instances of this?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. I suppose we gamify the whole economy system.
Right.
This is a difficult one to be super brief on. So, when we first started selling ships that aren't in the game yet, we didn't want the player to feel like they're not getting anything. So we gave them a loan ship, and then they said, "Well, okay, but now I've got 2 of those. I don't need 2 of those." So we said, "All right. Well, how about this then? If you pay for a ship, we'll let you have that amount of store credit, and then you can swap it for any ship you like."
Right.
And then they said, "Yeah, but can I get it back if I want it back?" Yes, okay, so we allowed them to do that. And I said, "What if I want a slightly more expensive ship than I've got?" So we said, "Oh, okay, well, you can pay and spend a little bit more money and get a better ship then."
Right.
That then suddenly became the biggest gamified system. I mean, it's extraordinary. There's whole sub-communities talking about, well, if you get this in-game object and then you upgrade it to that one, this one, this one, and this one, you save £50. So, you know, this is the way everyone should do it. So the entire economy and the fleet building has become a kind of gamified system.
Thank you.
The one final hand that I saw before.
I don't want to stop people getting hot pizza.
You can ask me over pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming along. Yeah, that's it.